changing in more dangerous ways than we currently understand. At present, our efforts to cure what we call climate change are focused on the removal of excess carbon from the atmosphere. Unfortunately, this will not be enough to fix the problem. In fact, even if we do succeed with this effort, it's likely that we will worsen the situation rather than cure it. I am Don Heath. Welcome to Climate Change, Climate Challenge, Part 4 of the Stellar Mechanism. In this segment of my theory, I will discuss what is really happening to Earth's climate, as well as what we must do to repair it. As a naturalist, I study all aspects of nature. It has been my goal to understand how this solar system was formed and how the Earth functions within it. After more than a decade of research, I believe to have answered some very important questions, including the question of climate change. Earth's climate is changing in more dangerous ways than we think we understand. We are told that our use of carbon is responsible for causing a greenhouse effect in our atmosphere. This heats up the atmosphere, making the polar ice caps melt, causing sea levels to rise, and giving us more frequent and volatile weather. Unfortunately, this assessment is not entirely correct. Yes, it is true that Earth's atmosphere is warming due to excess carbon. And yes, this causes more frequent and volatile weather. But this is only a very small part of the whole story. We have made a critical error in the assessment of this problem. We are looking at the situation from our own point of view. This means that we are blaming climate change for damages caused to our lives, to our lands, to our finances. But we must step away from our human arrogance and look at the situation from planet Earth's point of view. The Earth is only reacting to damages that it has already sustained. We must look at the situation as such. Earth is not out to get us. It only knows that there are repairs that need to be made. Unfortunately for us, this equates to a change in its climate. We are told if we do not stop the climate from changing, the polar ice caps will soon completely disappear, destroying coastlines and displacing millions of people. The truth is actually far, far worse. This is the Earth today. 3/4 of its surface is covered by water. But this is the Earth's surface without water. It's difficult to recognize, isn't it? Here's a closer look. This is the product of 4.6 billion years of evolution. If you look closely, you can see the damage that the Earth has sustained over that time period. I crafted this sculpture because for my research, I needed to see for myself how the Earth's surface has changed over time. It has given me an insight on how the solar system was formed and is the basis for my theory, the stellar mechanism. As I already stated, Earth is changing in more dangerous ways than we think we understand. By looking from Earth's point of view, we will understand what is happening. Earth's relationship with the sun is where we will find the answers. To put this into perspective, the sun is immense. It is 1 million times larger than the Earth. If this were the sun, the Earth would only be as big as 1 grain of salt. 1 million Earths can fit inside the sun. Its energy travels equally in all directions. The sun is 93 million miles away from the Earth. On the scale of that light bulb, the distance between the sun and the Earth is 1 grain of salt, approximately 2.5 meters away. But only a tiny fraction of the sun's energy is actually directed towards the planet. Of that energy, much of it is deflected by the Earth's first line of defense, its magnetic field. But even this tiny amount of energy would be enough to destroy the Earth's surface if it were allowed to reach the planet. But Earth does not allow this to happen. It is a living organism that protects itself from the power of the sun with layers of defense. These layers must all work together for the Earth to remain healthy. The outer layer of the magnetic field does not stop all of the sun's harmful energy from reaching the planet. 2 layers, called Van Allen belts, capture high and low energy particles that have passed through the outer edge of the magnetic field. This is Earth's second line of defense. But the Van Allen belts as well do not stop all of the sun's harmful energy. Some of what passes through this barrier is what we call visible light, which is ironic since it's invisible to us. This visible light is divided into wavelengths, ranging from infrared to ultraviolet. These waves reach the planet's surface, all except for one. The last of the harmful energy from the sun is ultraviolet B waves. These waves are intercepted by the Earth's ozone layer. This layer is special. Special because it is created by the very substance that it must defend the Earth against. When ultraviolet waves enter into the atmosphere, they contact oxygen molecules. These molecules are disintegrated by this contact. This means that the bond between the 2 oxygen atoms is broken. They are disintegrated. This leaves individual oxygen atoms. These atoms then seek out other atoms or molecules to reintegrate with. In this case, other O2 molecules. The new bond now forms O3 molecules, or ozone. The ozone layer is Earth's third line of defense. At this point, all of the sun's harmful energy has now been neutralized by these primary defenses. But there are still several layers of defense that must remain intact for the Earth to remain protected from the sun. The atmosphere itself protects the Earth. Made of mostly nitrogen at 78% and oxygen at 21%, the atmosphere is where the cooling process takes place. The heat energy received from the sun must be countered, otherwise it would be too much for the Earth's surface to handle. The exchange of water between the atmosphere and the planet's surface keeps the land hydrated, thus keeping it cool. This hydration provokes the growth of vegetation, again, cooling the land. And this vegetation provides oxygen to the atmosphere, once again, cooling the planet. Oxygen is the most important of these inner defenses. But the Earth must use oxygen in two fashions in order to live healthily. Number one, it must be mixed with nitrogen in order to form the air. And number two, oxygen must be integrated with hydrogen in order to form water. These two uses of oxygen allow the planet to reproduce all of the organisms found on its surface. All of these systems must work properly and together for the Earth to have an optimum protection from the sun. But they are not working properly. And when one part breaks down, the others must compensate for this. When this occurs, we perceive it as climate change. The problem is that we must identify which part of the system is causing the chain reaction. At present, we have identified excess carbon to be the cause of the problem. And yes, it is partially to blame. But unfortunately, this is only a small part of the problem. Removing the excess carbon from the atmosphere will not, I repeat, will not solve the climate change problem. Simply because excess carbon is not the root of climate change. To find the root of the problem, we must continue to look at Earth's solar defenses. So, where are Earth's defenses being weakened? We know that the ozone layer has been severely damaged. The layer itself is very thin, and there are massive holes over both of the poles. This allows harmful UVB energy to pass through to reach the planet's surface. Ozone is not static. It is created by a reaction from ultraviolet energy from the sun and oxygen from the earth. Since the energy from the sun is constant, for the ozone layer to have been weakened, we must deduce that there is not enough oxygen in the atmosphere. Earth is suffering from oxygen deprivation. But of course, we don't even realize this. We lead our lives every day breathing what we believe to be normally. But oxygen plays a far greater role on the Earth than just allowing us to breathe. Earth uses oxygen to protect itself from UV radiation. This is the primary role of oxygen on the planet. 7 billion of us also share this same oxygen with every animal and insect on the planet. This alone extracts an enormous amount of oxygen from Earth's atmosphere. When you combine the two factors together, there simply is not enough oxygen to do both effectively. The reason why there is not enough is simple. There are not enough trees on the planet to provide the needed quantity of oxygen. This is the catalyst, the root of climate change. The removal of trees from the planet has devastated its atmospheric balance, a balance that the Earth had taken billions of years to achieve. Now we are only beginning to see how important oxygen is to the health of Earth's atmosphere. As I already stated, Planet Earth is only trying to repair damage that it has already sustained. We perceive this as climate change. Increased heat, melting ice, excess liquid water, higher evaporation rates, increased precipitation. Planet Earth is trying to regrow its forests. There's only one problem though. We remove trees much faster than the planet can grow them. For years, we have all heard that deforestation is harmful to the environment. Now we must understand how vegetation, or rather the lack of vegetation, affects Earth's atmosphere. The Earth is telling us, and in no uncertain terms, to stop these practices or suffer the consequences. When I say the word deforestation, you probably think that I am referring to our recent practices, say over the last 200 or 300 years. But I am not. Humans have been removing trees since the advent of civilization. In fact, this is one of the bases of civilization itself. For more than 7,000 years, we have been doing this to the planet. Agriculture has always been the greatest excuse for removing trees out of our way. But over the millennia, there have also been many other reasons. The practice has only increased while spreading all over the world with the increase of the human population. We use it in countless applications. The fact is that throughout civilization, timber is by far our greatest commodity. Wood products surround us in our daily lives. Herein lies the problem. We have never truly understood the role that forests play on the earth. The time has come for us to understand that this is much more important for the earth to keep its forests intact rather than to remove them for what we believe to be important products. This map shows what remains of Earth's forests today. There was a time when all of the land masses were covered by forests, even on Antarctica. Oxygen levels at that time were much higher than the 21% of today. But at the advent of humanity, these zones had already been permanently stripped of their forests. Antarctica, Australia, Northern Africa, Southern Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, India, Southern Asia, Siberia, Greenland, Western North America, and Southern South America. All were stripped of their forests before the advent of humanity. This reduced the oxygen level from 40% down to the 21% of today. The point is that it is humans who are responsible for removing the rest, and we continue to remove them every single day. But forests are not the only source of oxygen on this planet. Tiny creatures called phytoplankton live in the oceans. They release oxygen into the atmosphere in much the same way that trees do. They are responsible for 50% of the Earth's oxygen supply. These two forces, forests and phytoplankton, combine to oxygenate Earth's atmosphere with a level of 21% O2. But that O2 level is only an illusion. Since oxygen is produced at the ground level, that is where the highest concentrations will be located. And as you know, the higher into the atmosphere you go, the less oxygen there is. The oxygen layer is shrinking. Over time, and with the removal of Earth's forests, the O2 layer has retracted, moving closer to the planet's surface. And since O2 and UV combine to produce O3, which is ozone, The ultraviolet radiation is being allowed to come closer to the planet's surface. This is extremely dangerous for both the planet and for us. Planet Earth is desperately trying to heal itself, but we are not allowing it to do so. I have shown you that what we call climate change is actually Earth's way of repairing its forests, which will produce more oxygen, which will in turn repair the ozone layer. We know that oxygen becomes thinner at altitude, and we know that the reaction between O2 and UV produce O3. But the oxygen must rise into the upper atmosphere in order to allow for a healthy ozone layer. Earth's weather system is what makes this possible. Earth's weather is complex yet simple. It is comprised of precipitation, heat, pressure, etc. In order to understand how to bring oxygen from the ground into the upper atmosphere, we must understand how the pressure system works. What we are feeling when we talk about atmospheric pressure is actually the weight of the sun's energy. For example, imagine that it's a hot summer's day and you're out and you say to yourself, "Oh, I feel so tired and I feel so heavy." You are experiencing high pressure. The full weight of the sun's energy is bearing down on top of you, or rather on top of the planet. But this is not only in summer. In winter, because of the Earth's tilt, there is less energy from the sun contacting the planet's surface. Thus, less weight, yet still high pressure. This pressure not only weighs down on us, it also weighs down on the moisture that is in the air. The water that evaporates from the surface is not allowed to rise into the atmosphere to form clouds. We perceive this as good weather, but low pressure is the opposite. There are always low pressure zones in the atmosphere simply because there is always water in the atmosphere. This moisture forms a barrier between the sun and the planet's surface. Underneath this barrier, the sun's energy is not as strong, thus less pressure. This lack of pressure allows the moisture to rise into the atmosphere from the planet's surface to form more clouds. But oxygen also rises with this moisture. These systems can be very large. They exist to hydrate the land with their moisture and to oxygenate the upper atmosphere. They can become very concentrated, forming into intense tropical storms and tornadoes. When a vortex forms, the system is literally siphoning oxygen from the surface into the upper atmosphere, where it needs to be in order to intercept the UV energy. At present, we are seeing an increase in these types of systems. This simply means that the Earth has begun to take extreme measures to protect itself from ultraviolet radiation. When this happens, we perceive it as climate change. It is said that our use of carbon is the driving force behind climate change. And yes, this is partially true. But it is not the mere fact that there is carbon in the atmosphere that is making this planet warmer. This carbon layer is being heated by the ultraviolet radiation that passes through the ozone layer. This radiation reacts with whatever it comes into contact with. In this case, the excess carbon in our atmosphere. With this layer now choked with radiation, the heat energy coming from the sun that reaches the planet's surface cannot escape back out into space. It is trapped by this CO2 UV layer, causing a greenhouse effect on the Earth. The bottom line is that UV radiation is heating the Earth's atmosphere and causing dangerous situations. For example, these are normal everyday sunglasses. You can find them anywhere. The lenses are coated with a substance that blocks UV rays. This protects our eyes when we're out in the sun. This is a bottle of suntan lotion. It gives a protection called SPF, or Sun Protection Factor. We put it on our skin when we want to spend time outdoors in the sun. These are everyday products, so there can be no disputing the fact that UV rays are affecting us in our daily lives. The problem is that we have become complacent, believing that we are safe from UV rays, but we are not. We would rather use those products instead of looking for the true cause of the problem. We are experiencing droughts, tropical storms, tornadoes. These things are what we see every day around the world. We equate the damage caused into monetary values, but there is a part of climate change that we have never discussed, simply because we cannot see it happening. Not yet. Once again, this is how the Earth looks today. 3/4 of its surface is covered by liquid water. But this is the future of the Earth, a planet stripped of its water supply. This is a situation that will be hard for you to understand, especially since we are being told that Earth's sea levels are rising. But again, the sea level rise is only an illusion. The truth is that Earth's water supply is disintegrating right before our eyes. Yet we are not able to see this because we are being blinded by the factors that we can see. It is the loss of Earth's water supply that is the most dangerous aspect of climate change. It is the end game. Earth is a water world. 3/4 of its surface is covered by either liquid or ice, as well as the nearly 13,000 cubic kilometers of vapor that is found in its atmosphere. We believe that this water has always been here in the same quantities as today, but in the beginning, there was certainly much more than there is now. The water level has steadily decreased throughout the history of the planet, decreased because of various different reasons occurring at various different time periods. Earth's water supply is vital to its life. That's why it fights so hard to protect it. This water supply is not infinite. It is a finite resource. Only so much was placed here at the beginning of Earth's history. Once it is all gone, it can never come back. In this demonstration, I have shown you how planet Earth protects itself from the power of the sun. These defenses are here for only one reason: to protect Earth's water supply. But because of us, it is failing. Less forests produce less oxygen, and less oxygen produces less ozone, and less ozone allows more ultraviolet energy to pass through. And that UV energy is right now as we speak, attacking the Earth's surface. UV radiation not only disintegrates the O2 molecule, it also disintegrates the H2O molecule. This action is Earth's last line of defense against the power of the sun. When the H2O molecule is disintegrated, it frees the oxygen atom to reintegrate itself into the atmosphere, thus increasing the world's oxygen supply. But it does this at the expense of Earth's water supply. Those H2O molecules that have been disintegrated are lost forever. This is Earth's last effort to protect itself from the power of the sun. This in compensation for the lack of oxygen produced by the remaining forests. It is for this reason that the ozone layer seems to be repairing itself, again at the expense of Earth's water supply. Earth will continue to extract oxygen from its oceans as well as any other water source that UV energy comes into contact with, thus reducing the amount of H2O on the planet's surface. This will continue to happen until Earth's vegetative oxygen supply is restored to the proper capacity. These are examples of water bodies that are right now disappearing before our eyes. This is Lake Urmia in Iran. On the left, you see the picture from 1985, the lake capacity. Just a few years later, we have the capacity in 2010. Today, Lake Urmia is currently only at 10% of its total capacity. But this is not from evaporation. This is the product of H2O molecules disintegrating from exposure to UV radiation. Lake Chad in northern Africa is probably the most well-known example of a disappearing body of water. It was once the largest body of water on continental Africa. Now at only 5% of its total capacity, soon it will disappear forever. Near Guadalajara, Lake Chapala is Mexico's largest body of water. These images span the 15 years from 1986 to 2001. In Central Asia, this was Lake Aral in the 1960s. But by 2000, more than half of its capacity had disappeared. Today, another one of Earth's water bodies is on the verge of vanishing forever. In Western Australia, Lake Disappointment is a very frightening example. In the 2 weeks that spanned February 22nd to March 24th of 2013, this is how much water it lost. In Nevada, this is Lake Mead. Lake Mead is the primary water reservoir for the southwestern United States. At 1/3 of its capacity, these are some of the lowest levels since the Hoover Dam was completed in 1942. These are all examples of H2O disintegration due to ultraviolet energy exposure. If we do not stop our deforestation practices, the Earth's surface will soon die from a lack of both oxygen and water, the two most vital substances that it needs to live. But we must not only stop removing trees, we must replace as many of them as we can. If we are able to do this, not only will we be helping the Earth to repair itself, we will find that we are able to control Earth's climate, giving us optimum circumstances for life on this planet. If we are not able to do this, we will lose this planet in a very short period of time, simply because we do not respect nature. Making this planet healthy is strictly up to us. We caused this damage, and we must fix it. Earth is 4.6 billion years old, but in the last 7,000 years, humans have driven it to the point where it is now rebelling against us. Soon it will reach the point of no return. If this happens, we will have been responsible for the failure of this world, the only place in the entire universe that we are sure there is life. Instead, we have an opportunity and an obligation to help the earth to repair itself, not only because this is what the earth needs, but because our population is steadily increasing. Every day, approximately 350,000 humans are born into this world. By the year 2050, there will be 9 billion inhabitants. People who will all need homes to live in, food to eat, water to drink, and oxygen to breathe. By starting the vegetation regeneration process now, we will be preparing the planet for the 9 billion who will be here by 2050 and the 12 billion who will be here by 2100. If we do not do this, we will have been responsible for our own failure. Simply put, once the water on this planet is gone, it's all over. Today, I have spoken about how dangerous ultraviolet rays are to the earth, and how 7,000 years of human deforestation has triggered a chain reaction that is now letting this danger in. We have been told that we can stabilize the climate by removing excess carbon from the atmosphere. We must not focus all of our efforts on the removal of these gases. If we do, the UV damage will only accelerate. We must attack the situation on both fronts, replacing the forests as well as removing carbon from the atmosphere. Otherwise, the earth will be under constant attack from UV radiation. Its water supply will disintegrate, and the earth will look similar to this. If we do replace Earth's forests, we will be able to control Earth's climate, giving us optimum circumstances for life on this planet. I am Don Heath. Thank you for witnessing my theory, the stellar mechanism. Our planet is prematurely dying. This is strictly our own fault. But we have an opportunity and an obligation to help our planet to repair itself. The only question is, are we smart enough to listen to what Earth is trying to tell us?